All right. Good morning. Good morning. If you're a replayer, you can still participate. You can tap on the screen for hearts. You can share. You can find me on Twitter. Hi, Joe81. And you can find me on Snapchat, especially if you have questions on what it is that I talk about today. Okay. Oh, crazy hair. Pre-workout. So, if you're new to me, hi Medina Yuyu. If you are new to me, my name is, good morning. My name is joannazarach, and hi Joyce Jolly. And I do a daily money habits broadcast at 10 a.m. Central, where I talk about developing better money habits. I'm just a Bears fan. Hello. And what is Money Habit really? Hi, how are you? What is Money Habits all about? It's really about developing better financial habits. So, money is a big source of stress, and what I'm trying to do is help people share my own money habits and my own approach to money and how I think about money, both from a very practical standpoint in terms of what I do to manage money, but also from a sort of a money mindset and money concept when it comes. Hi Anthony. When it comes to the money, like understanding what money is. And so here's like one of the biggest revelations that I've had more recently is this applied math. Hi Cougar 90, is to really convey applied math to people. Hi. And I do it in a couple of ways. So my background actually was in mathematics, like way early. I was one of those crazy like math kids, and so my intrinsic, both my skill and my ability around math, is something that I've taken for granted. And as I started to explain some of the money concepts, I recognized that like trying to convey to people like how the math works is actually a huge part of the value that I can deliver. So one of the things that I try to do is to try to construct spreadsheets that'll help people understand why it works, right? So why does what I sort of talk about, why does it work? So the money habits is kind of the execution on it, on how you get there, because you have to be consistent. Everything that you're going to be successful with in life, you have to do consistently. And that's the message that I give to people, because none of this is easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's not impossible. And the way you do it is you break it down into chunks where you pay attention to your money. And thank you for inviting people. You are paying attention to your money on a more consistent basis, right? So I advocate a daily a ritual, right? So it's like everything you do, if you just do it every day, if you expect, thank you for inviting our followers. If you expect to do it, first of all, you get better at it. You don't you don't you don't have to think about it, right? It's just what you do, right? You're like, hey, I just wake up and I do this, I have my coffee, I do this, and I pay attention to my money. And so I try to give people the practical aspects, but also just go through the spreadsheets. And so I just started working, so I'll be honest. I started working on the spreadsheet, and I know it's going to be more complicated. So I want to, what happens is usually I'll take a few turns and you'll see the spreadsheet evolve. But as I've added this spreadsheet to some of my other investment spreadsheets that I've done. So I might be able to actually go through some of the other spreadsheets, because most people haven't seen those either. So, but I want to tell you, I talked about, oh, well, that's okay. Goodbye. And so what I wanted to do is just sort of give you guys an idea of how these spreadsheets are made and what's going to go into the inputs of the financial freedom calculation. And then I want to talk a little bit about the sort of the compounding equations. So we're not going to get through everything today, because as I started building it, I was like, okay, here's the more complicated things. But I want to talk about the things that go into. So today I just want to talk about inputs and kind of what are your inputs and what would you need to what you would need to kind of get together in terms of how do I think about the financial freedom number. So I think I'm just going to flip it over and see if it works, because again I sometimes have sometimes hesitate with the display. So when it comes to the financial freedom number, and what is it that I'm talking about? The financial freedom number is, hello, how are you? Is the the amount of money that you would have to accumulate through efforts, both through income but also savings, being smart about taxes and investing over a long period of time. So I think time is the variable that a lot of people forget about. It's like none of what I advocate happens overnight. It's just taking steps towards it and then getting more and more aware of how it actually works. And I'm trying to fast forward. Oh, great. Yeah, I got a copy of your statement. Excellent. That is super important. And I have to I know the lifetime income exercise that it was really a long time ago. So now I'm reviving it. So, I'll just give you some examples of what it is I mean. I said it's not complete yet because it is going to take me some time. So one of the things that for the inputs on the spreadsheet I'm going to do is a work in progress. First of all, wherever your starting point. So these are the inputs that I think will matter, right? And so one is sort of what is your starting point? And maybe if I turn it, it'll be a little bit better. Let's see. So one of the things that everybody needs to know, and let me just flip. Do I have the score sheet? Let me see if I have my score sheet. No, this is a tax estimate. Let me see if I have my financial scorecard. I started working on financial scorecard, and if you probably this was last week. So one of the things is these are all the things that everybody needs to know about their own financial situation, and this is the things I talk about. So if you don't know those, it gets really difficult to get a clear picture of it, of your financial situation. But anyway, this is why some of this are inputs that go into here. So the first thing that everybody should know, if you don't know it yet, is you need to calculate your current net worth. And all net worth means is what are your total assets minus your total liabilities. So that's going to be your starting point. Like I know that some people, the net worth is either zero or negative, but I'm just starting with saying, okay, what if, let's say it's $100,000. So what you would do is you would use whatever your net worth is in here. Because when your starting point is actually very, very important. This is why you can't compete with intergenerational wealth. If someone is born into a family that's already established financially, they're going to have a much easier way in life and get benefits that you and I may not know about because they've benefited from that net worth at being born. But I'm trying to work with people who don't start with anything when they're born, don't have anything as they grow up, don't have anybody else looking out for them, so they're starting without the knowledge or the assets. And that's really, really important because that's me. I have, my grandparents barely made it through through the war and through in poverty. And my parents, when they moved here to this country, my dad had the benefit of having an education. And so he was able to, do okay for himself, but really a struggle, right? So I grew up seeing my parents struggle, but be very frugal, right? So they're okay. They still don't understand money. They don't understand how money works. It's so funny. Anyway, the things that really matter when it comes to income, right? So when you, here's the 5 things that really make a difference when it comes to wealth building, income. So here's how I want you to think about income. There is your current income. That's kind of your annual income. So everybody kind of has an income that they're at. And again, I want you to get out of the mindset that income is somehow fixed. Income is not a fixed variable. It is where you're currently at, but where you will be in the future is different. And so the other thing that I really try to get people to focus on is lifetime income. What is your expected lifetime income? And I break it up into 2 pieces. So if you've been only working, so I'm using this for just an example right now. I say, well, if you're at $80,000, and I use a discounting factor, so it's not super accurate, but I'll say on average, if you've been working for 10 years, you have made, because you've been building up to it, so it's not an even multiplier. I actually discounted a little bit. And I said, let's say if you've worked at this, if you have a job that pays you $80,000, you've probably made over $500,000 in 10 years. And this is where I want you guys to start realizing, if you have been employed for a while, you've actually made a whole bunch of income. The question is, where did it all go, right? The other thing I want you to focus on, that let's say if you're going to work for another 30 years at this particular income level, and again, I upgraded it a little bit for inflation, and I just made a sort of a quick and dirty back of an envelope calculation. But let's say you're going to make another $3 million in your lifetime. So let's say if those things change, if you've been in the workforce for 20 years and be working another 20 years, you've made over $1 million, and you're going to make another $2 million. And that's again at 80. And this is why this matters, because if you go and you say, I'm aspiring to make 6 figures, those things change, right? So you are going to be making, this is why income is such an important thing, is because the multiplier of years, it gets to, gets to the, how much money is coming your way. So the flow of income is super, super important. And you can say it like someone who's making $100,000 or $120,000 today is probably in the 5 million lifetime income. That's total. And I'm assuming 40 years, right? So that's something that's super duper important for you to do, is to get perspective on your past income and your future income, right? So that you can say, what is my, what's my potential? Because again, if you're in the $60,000 range, which is kind of a, it's a professional level income. Some managers, depending where you live in the country, that could be a decent living. But you can see like that's 2.7. Why is it that I focus on lifetime income? It's both to give you a perspective in the positive, but also to tell you like that's one of the limiting factors in wealth building. Because if this is all the money you earn, depending on how much you need to live on, you're not going to be able to save a lot, right? The other piece that's really important in the equation is the savings rate. So I put the savings rate in 30%. If you have been, oh look, that got bright somehow, 30%, this is the rate that I believe is very critical for people to take into account. It's not save 3%, it's not save even 10%, which some people say, well, you should aspire to 10%. You got to figure out how you can save 30% of your income. And you may say, wow, that's really difficult if I'm making $60,000. And I'll say, I understand, because the cost of living, but I want you to be, I will be, and I'll be doing, like I said, this spreadsheet's in its infancy, but I'm very interested in it because I think like I need to put all the variables, but I need to be able, then people do their own, people then will need to do their own calculations, and I want to just build the system. But today I'm just talking about the inputs, right? Because I've decided to break it down a little bit. So the savings rate is critical. Now I want you guys saving in retirement. So here's my perspective. I'm a big fan of using the tax deferred system that the U.S. offers to really boost your net worth. Why? Because if you are in the position where you're cash flow challenged, what does cash flow? So some people aren't cash flow challenged. What do I mean cash flow challenged? It takes at least $75,000 for you to have a decent living. So if you're someone who's making $250,000, you look at people who are the 1% earners or even the top 5% earners. And in some cases, maybe the top 20. If you're in top 20% earner, you're probably not facing cash flow issues. If you are, it's kind of self-made because you've upgraded your lifestyle. So I'm talking about if you're still early in your career or you're still in a lower paid industry, I want you to take advantage of tax-deferred savings retirement vehicles. So IRAs, right, individual retirement accounts, 401ks, the traditional kind. Again, you only do Roth if you know you're going to be in a increasing your income and you can handle the cash flow. Because if you're cash flow challenged, the tax deductions that you get through the traditional vehicles are well worth it. They are well worth it. That is how I built. I started out building all my wealth and my retirement saving in traditional accounts. Yes, they will be taxed when I withdraw it starting at 70.5. I'm okay with it because when I got less cash flow challenged, I started using the Roth vehicles in addition to traditional. So you need to find, you need to max it out. And again, I I am sort of going against the flow of people who say, oh, just get the 401k match. And I'm like, forget the match. I mean, match is great. That's a cherry on top. You need to figure out how you're going to max out your account. So you can see actually this worked out well. At $60,000 annual income, 30% savings is $18,000. You know what that happens to be? That happens to be the maximum amount you can, you can put into a 401k. In 2016, the limit of contribution to 401k is $18,000. I want you guys to reframe your thinking and stop thinking, I got to put away 3%. You got to put away the maximum, and that's 30%. The nice thing is that the tax, IRS will give you some of that money back in your tax return. And therefore, even though you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. Okay, computer, you're going to have to sacrifice, you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit in cash flow. But you need to get into it. So lifetime, again, if you were putting 30%, right? And this is not compounded. This has not. Un peu. Je ne peux parler français maintenant. I've forgotten most of my French that I was taking. I took French for like 6 years. I don't speak French. Sorry. So lifetime, this is just savings, right? Because again, I've just started the spreadsheet. We haven't even gotten the rate of return in here yet, right? So that's kind of the first, and my battery is dying. My battery's dying. But this is the first set of inputs that really matter when it comes to net worth. And so your income, and again, savings rate, I don't call it out in my top 5. It's implicit to me in the income, but the savings rate, maybe I should talk more about it, but the savings rate is critical, and that's just money you set aside. And again, this is why when you say, you know what, it's really hard to do that with $60,000 income. I agree. That's why you need to figure out how to make this 60 into 80 and how to make this 80 into 100, right? Your biggest job in the world is to figure out how to increase your income. And by the way, there's some wonderful resources for people who help to teach you that. Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn is an amazing blog, and Pat's been sharing his wisdom and knowledge with people so freely, and he gives people a lot of ideas on how to do it. Ramit Sethi, who, by the way, started out trying to help people with their personal finance and switched into income generation because he also realized 2 things. Income really matters, and that's how he could help people. And 2, you can't make money in giving personal finance advice. No one wants it. And so and it's funny because I'd written to Ramit and I said, look, I'm trying to do what you've kind of gave up on because I'm in a different part of my life. And so I love his programs and I think he's really effective. And by the way, the message from those guys is never, this is easy. They both are very realistic in saying it takes a lot of work to increase your income, but it is possible. Pat Flynn, Flynn, his blog is like one word, Smart Passive Income. Check him out. He's got a podcast if you just want to listen to it. And the other one is Ramit Sethi, Sethi, and he says his website is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. They're both good at the income increase teachings. And again, so that's why I say I'm not an expert in helping you figure out how to increase your income, but there are resources that are. But this is why it matters, right? Because every time you change this number, this total lifetime income changes. And again, if you're still early in your and you do, I'm going to work for another 30 years, right? Or 40 years, your income is going to continue to increase, but it's based on where you are today. Don't limit yourself in terms of your income. This is the first area of input in terms of your, figuring out your net worth. What we're going to do over the next few weeks, I usually do this spreadsheets on Wednesdays, is to add the other variables into it to show you guys where that number is going to grow. But like I said, I started breaking it down. I'm like, this is going to take a little bit more complex compounding on my thing. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview because I've had done a couple other calculators. So I have this calculator that's called Invest or Pay Down Debt. And it takes into account the percentage of your interest rate and how much available cash you have. And by the way, unless it's double digits in terms of interest rate, the answer is always invest into tax deferred accounts, because you're going to get better better outcome from it. Your investing stages, again, this is looking at the rate of return, and your tax bracket really impacts how much money you're going to be able to put away. So I've done these other calculators, but I'm going to incorporate them into this overall spreadsheet we're looking at. This is one of the calculators I did when I try to convince people to invest on their in the Vanguard funds instead of going through an advisor or highly funded, highly increased fees. Because there's a difference. This is always a difference on how much money you get to keep. So all the things, and I cite stuff in here as well. So all these things are. Ask yourself why you need credit. So if you have if you still have credit card debt, I would say pay that off first. Now, rebuilding credit, ask yourself why you need the credit, right? So if you want to buy a property, right? Like you only, I would say investment, because investment is yours. Yeah, if you don't have credit card debt, work on your investment. Unless you have like some really, really critical goal where you're gonna need to borrow money. And again, I think besides like buying a house, which you may or may not need to do, it may not be the best answer for you. Make sure you're, I would say you need to focus on investing. If you don't have credit card debt, I would put some of your money and some of your energy into investing, even if it's small. Now it's, like your credit's going to keep getting better, but I don't know, unless you have something that absolutely requires a loan, I would say invest. That's my guidance to you, because I feel like you're going to be better off in a long run if you start investing now, and then credit is later. So, but be in a position where you have cash flow, where you don't need to rely on credit. Yeah. So, which is always my position. Don't rely on credit to fund anything in your life. I mean, yes, you can get a mortgage, but if you might buy too much house, right? A lot of times people will, thank you for inviting your followers. A lot of times people will buy too much house with credit. So that's that's my thought. So credit is a tool, but I think you're better off investing and spending your time investing. Okay, so that's kind of this is the first set of inputs that we put into it. I just really want you to guys think about income and your savings rate. And next time I'm going to continue working the spreadsheets. I'm excited about where it's going to go in terms of like building out the guts of it, but to give you a clean output on the rate of return and your taxation rate and what implication that has. So IRA and 401k, obviously those are the first things. If you're maxing out both, that means you're doing really well, because you're probably putting, individually, you're putting 18 plus 5.5. You're putting like almost $24,000 into those vehicles. If you're looking at tax deferred and you have a side business, I would say individual 401k. I like tax deferred vehicles. If you have kids or you want a further education, 529 plans are pretty good. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to my channel where I talk about money every single day. And so my batteries keeps showing. If I drop off, it's because my battery died, guys. And so, I like the tax deferred vehicles. If you have a lot more cash flow beyond your 401ks and IRAs, I would say start thinking about starting a business, because when you have side income from a business, a solopreneur, like when you sell services, you can then tap an individual 401k, and an individual 401k gives you a huge, and you can do a regular 401k and individual 401k, but if you're primarily a solopreneur, individual 401k, so 401k, if you're an employee, it's $18,000 a year, and that limit goes up based on inflation. So every year that limit may or may not change. So today, 2016, you can put in $18,000 in your 401k. That's the max. Yep, that's it. And it will continue to increase. Now, there's catch-up contributions. If you're over 50, hi, how are you? If you're over 50, there's some catch-up contribution provisions. If you're a business owner and you don't have any employees, the individual 401k, it's $18,000 plus 25% of your profit up to $53,000. So if you are in a business that's generating about a couple $100,000 in profits as a small business and a solopreneur, you can be putting $53,000 in tax deferred accounts or tax free, depending if you do a Roth split. And we can talk about it in more detail, but they are, yeah, I favor those. And by the way, if you're putting $24,000 away every year, you're ahead of the game, let's just say, vis-a-vis a lot of other people. And that's why consistency, the year-to-year consistency, otherwise just invested in an after-tax brokerage. I just do mutual funds in Vanguard. I mean, my tax-deferred investment and my regular investment, I haven't gotten so sophisticated that I'm super tax effective where my different investments are. I just say have the discipline to put it away and watch it grow. If you're an accredited investor, you can look at alternatives like I do Lending Club, so I can talk about it. That's about 8% return that I'm getting on that. I do think that those apps are making it easier. I haven't used those apps. I know people have reviewed them. I do think that whatever gets you to take the action and make it easier, definitely use it. So I would say when you get started, and I think the Acorn app, I don't know enough about it, but I need to start exploring those. I just haven't been using it. So I can't recommend it, but I know that I've read reviews and that they sound promising, right? So if it's a tool that's going to help you, definitely use it. Like Digits is another one, simple, and we're going to need to have a review of those. And again, I'd like to become a user. I'm just not the target market for a lot of those because I already have, I'm already in Vanguard mutual funds and I've met all the minimums. But I like those. I think that there's a lot of exciting things going on in fintech, and they will come with small fees. So eventually you want to graduate from those. They hope you don't, right? Like they're hoping that like you get such a good experience that as your assets grow, that's right. You should use them. For an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, if you have no employees in your business, you should look into an individual 401k. It is by far a more, and you should have both. By the way, I have both. The answer is both. An IRA is only $5,500 a year. So you should put your money there first because you have more control over it. But a 401k may be easier because you don't have to do much. You just have, if it's through an employer, it's easier to access. And then, but from a wealth building perspective, you should totally open an individual 401k, and Vanguard lets you do that with very little, very low cost because they don't charge you anything extra. Now you have to administer it. By administer it means you have to fill out like a form a year maybe at most. So both or all of the above is always the answer. So anyway, so to wrap it up. Thank you everyone who joined. If you're just joining, or if you joined recently, or you follow me recently, do an IRA. Yeah, do whatever you qualify for, right? Because some of the, at some incomes, you're not qualified anymore for some of those vehicles. So whatever you qualify for, do it. Do as many tax deferred things as you can, and again, IRA, you control more. And, and again, I go do low cost, go Vanguard, and do the lowest cost possible. So you have to make more decisions when you do an IRA, but don't be intimidated by the decisions you need to make. They're not like, just look at some broad index funds when you first start. Hey, how are you? And so, do that, do it all. Like try to figure out, and you can do like, it's incremental, so yes, Lending Club, you have to be an accredited investor, and an accredited investor is defined either someone who has $1 million in investable assets, so outside of your house doesn't count, or you're making $200,000 a year for at least 2 years, or if you're married, a household income has to be $300,000. Don't quote me on these exactly because I would have to read it. I always check, but you have to be an accredited investor. The reason is because they don't want people. Because it's a riskier investment. If people default on those loans, you're out of luck, right? You take a greater risk. So they want to make sure the people that are participating in it aren't just trying to like make, pay the bills with that money. That's really for the investment money. So yeah, you do have to have either income requirement or asset requirements. And in some ways, I actually think it's easier to get to. It takes longer, but it's easier to get to the asset requirement, to get to $1 million in assets, which includes your IRA and your 401ks. Just your house can't count towards that 1 million because you can't, your house is not an investable asset, by the way. It's a consumable asset. Anyhow, the thing is that don't get too hung up on doing it perfectly. Do whatever's the most accessible to you in terms of investing. If you have a 401k at work, it's so easy to sign up. But opening an IRA is not super complicated either. You just have to take more actions. Maybe you take 5 more decision points instead of the 401k, where you can just like go to your HR and be like, do it, right? Like they press a button and they do it for you, and the money flows automatically and all that. So an IRA just takes like 5 more steps, because you have to send the money, and then you have to fill out the paperwork, you have to send the money, and then you have to pick a fund. But that's not very taxing. And again, when you're money managing all the time, all of a sudden it becomes less intimidating. And once you do it once, see, that first step is always the most intimidating. And once you do it, you're like, wait a minute, this was easy. Then you go running around. Yeah, thank you for joining and your support. You go running around and I tell everybody how easy it is. So that's it for today. We just started talking about the inputs for your financial freedom equation. I was like, oh, I'll have the whole thing figured out. It's always more complicated than I even think. And also, I forgot I had a phone call trying to counsel somebody around helping someone with their career path. And so I will continue working the spreadsheet. I'm super excited to actually get to the numbers, but I need to do the compounding equations, which are always more complicated. That's why they're hard. Like compounding equations, even I have to like really strain my brain to get them right. It is, but like if you do a little bit every day, all of a sudden, and once you do it once, the next time is easier. Everything is super, super difficult and intimidating before you do it. How can you reach out for me for coaching? I haven't set up anything for coaching. Go on Twitter. Like if you just want to set up a time right now, I don't have anything formal, but why don't you find me on Twitter? Just direct message me and we can set up a time. We can just chat. So let's just try it. Because I haven't, again, I've been meeting with people around Chicago, and then I think I'll just do it, like let's just do over Skype. Let's do a Skype session, see how it works. So just find me at Twitter, and I'm available during the day. It's really hard for me to do some evening time because I have little children. But during the day I have a lot of availability. I'm happy to get off the phone for, jump on for a half hour or so, and we can go through your situation. Yeah, just message me on Twitter and we can set up a time. And again, like during the weekdays is really my best time, which is sometimes opposite of working people time. But yeah, I'm happy to kind of go through and talk about your situation and just encourage, like sometimes it's just really pushing people to be like, go to this website, sign up for this, and then they have questions. I'm like, it's okay, like pick something, and like we can go through the options. So thank you guys for joining, and I'll be back tomorrow 10 a.m. Central, because I'm on every day, as one of my strengths is consistency and commitment. So I will be on tomorrow 10 a.m. Central. Not sure what I'm going to talk about yet. Sometimes I read an article or something that gets me going, and we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about resilience in your money. I read a really good. I'm glad. I'm trying to get people to take action and that be less intimidated, and to tell you that you can do this. That you don't. I'm here to support you, but I feel I'm confident that everybody can do this. Can become an investor, can take more control over the money, and be the first, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like if you're born into a family with an intergenerational life, man, it's so nice. You have the other challenges, but for everybody else that doesn't have that building up ahead of them, you can be the first. You can be the first investor in your family. Don't just be the first to go to college. Be the first to be an investor and pass that for your children, right? Like we'll talk about it. Setting up your children for a successful financial life is one of the things I'm most excited about. And actually, I'm talking to a group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders this Friday in my local school on personal finance, because I want to start integrating it. Yeah, that's right. Great. Because you can, it's totally doable, and you have so much life ahead of you. Yeah, so I'm talking to them about personal finance because I want to start integrating like how to teach kids about personal finance, because the best way to financial independence is to not to make mistakes early on, or to like start off on the right foot. And that's because the power of time, right? We're going to talk about the variable of time in your financial freedom equation. It's really, really one of the most important things. So thanks a lot, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. I got to run, and I will, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, thank you. It does. Well, you know, that's one of my pillars that I want to do is figure out how to reach people at the critical times, and how to reach millennials. And hey, I'm on Periscope and all this social media because that's where people are at. Have a wonderful day, guys. Okay, see you tomorrow.